All right, what's going on, everybody? Matt Bove, Howard Simon, Joe Buscaglia. So the Bills are now 7-6 on the season following their win against the Kansas City Chiefs. The question, though, everybody wants to know is, can this team make the playoffs? Simple question. Joe, no pressure. Can they make the playoffs?
Yeah, they can. I think they have enough of a positive chance against their upcoming opponents. You look at Easton Stick and the Chargers.
Yep,
you look at the New England Patriots, who we don't know who is going to be starting at quarterback by that point in time. Maybe Bailey Zappi, could be Malik Cunningham.
Yep.
Maybe Mac Jones gets brought back from the dead at this point. But those are two games that should be wins as long as Justin Herbert doesn't play in that LA Chargers game. And I think they can win against the Cowboys. But I think the bigger point here is all of those wild card potential teams in the hunt crowd. A lot of those teams play one another, and there's the major opportunity for these teams to cannibalize one another. Of those 7 teams that you see right there, 5 of them play 2 different teams in that 7-team cluster right there. So not only is that important for the Bills having teams in front of them lose games, it also impacts the potential tiebreaker, because those are AFC games, and the Bills can, if they hold their business against the Patriots and against the Chargers, maybe even against the Dolphins, that moves them up in AFC conference record, and it moves some of those teams that have to play one another down, and that could help their chances.
Yeah, and I think, we spent so much time talking about I need the offense back. So I only got 20 points against Kansas City. That's a good defense. But the offense looks like it's where it needs to be, to do its job. I think if you're feeling good about the Bills' chances, it's because the defense, if they play like they did against the Chiefs, they had those back-to-back touchdown drives, but they played a really good game against Kansas City, and they finally closed out the game. Matt, you can't have the offense do 90% of the work. If the offense plays like it can, and the defense figured out, maybe they gained some confidence by closing this one out, then I have no problem saying they can absolutely run the table, by the way, if that continues.
I think that when you look at their last 4 games, we've got the schedule for you, there are 2 games on there you should absolutely win, and then 2 games that are tough. The 2 games you should absolutely win are the Chargers game and the Patriots game. But then, I really do think if you win 3 of your last 4, you are getting in. And that means you need to split between the Cowboys and the Dolphins. And I think one of those games is at home. You're flying high. The Cowboys are flying high, coming off of a huge win against the Eagles. They're a different team on the road than they are at home. That doesn't mean they're a bad team. They're just a different team. They are dominant at home. You might be catching them at the right time, kind of like the Bills caught the Chiefs at the right time, and kind of how they caught the Eagles at the right time, even though they didn't take advantage of it. And then who knows with the Dolphins? The Dolphins could have this thing locked up. They could have the 1 seed in the entire AFC locked up by the last game of the season. And with their injury history at quarterback, that if they do not need to play their starters, they will not be. Same thing with Tyreek Hill. Maybe you get him 2,000 yards, and then after that, you go sit him on the bench because you don't want to ruin your season and your chances of winning the Super Bowl. I really do think they can get in, and I also really think that if they get in, they could make some noise. So I guess can might not have been the right word. Will they? Put you on the spot. Will they get in? You don't have to expand on it. Just what does your gut tell you?
Yeah, they're in.
You think they're in?
They're in.
I don't know. I think they'll go 10. And I think they'll go. No, honestly, I think they'll go. No, because here's the deal. I don't think they beat Dallas.
Okay.
But I think they win their last 3 games and they go 10-7. Now, based on the New York Times playoff machine, that gives them a good shot to be in.
Yeah.
It's tiebreakers, guys. I would say they would be in because of Joe's point about everybody else is going to be playing each other and and knocking each other off. I think they go 10-7. They'll end up 6-6 in the conference.
Yep.
They could probably sneak in.
I can expand a little bit. Like Cleveland still has to play Chicago, and Chicago's playing a lot better as of late. That could be a loss right there. Pittsburgh has to play Seattle and
Pittsburgh's
Baltimore.
Pittsburgh's a phony.
Exactly, and they're starting Mitchell Trubisky. Indianapolis
Colts.
I mean, they play Atlanta, who's going to be battling for the NFC South, and the Raiders, who Houston.
Well,
we don't know
what's
what's happening with C.J. Stroud.
Protocol.
They have to play the Titans twice.
Look at Denver's schedule after
Denver
Detroit.
is the team that I think scares me.
After Detroit.
Denver, I think, is the team that's probably the most concerning because they also have the tiebreaker.
So fine, they get in. There's 3 spots.
I know. Well, Cleveland's going to get in.
Well, Cincinnati's
I don't know that they are.
Cincinnati's winning with their backup quarterback.
I know. I don't know that Cleveland gets it.
Okay. All right.
They probably do, but I mean, you look at their schedule: Chicago, Houston, Cincinnati, Jets. That's not the order, but I could see them losing all 4 of those games.
I spent about a half an hour.
Aaron Rodgers could be back by the time that Justin.
stop it.
He could. He
Okay,
could.
sure, yeah, sure.
He could.
Yeah, sure.
He could.
Yeah, my best friend Aaron Rodgers. The one thing I will say is that
No, you guys
I
were-
spent.
Was he the TSA agent?
He was the TSA agent who pushed me
Got you
in the Kansas City airport at about 12:30 on Monday morning after the Bills had won the game. I was in my hotel and I was screwing around with the New York Times playoff predictor thing. The thing that is interesting to me is I think that is based off of strictly all of the math involved and all of the percentages there, but I don't think it takes into account all of the injuries that these
okay.
teams are dealing
I got
with.
you, right.
Like, is that looking at the Kansas?
How can it?
How can it? Right? So
That's highly subjective.
that's
And
what I mean.
This is formulas.
So this is Jake Browning. It's Mitch Trubisky. It's C.J. Stroud in concussion protocol. It's Gardner Minshew. Like, it's not
Joe
these
Flacco.
teams. Joe Flacco. It is not these teams at full strength.
Right.
So that makes me pretty confident in the Bills' chances of ultimately getting to the playoffs. We'll find out what happens soon. A big one coming up against the Cowboys.